you know, have a good noodle quietly without disturbing anyone. Hi, welcome to PDM Vlogs. Today we're going to be talking about using impulse responses for recording guitars and bass direct injected. This is something I've been looking into, disappearing down this particular rabbit hole recently, because I was looking for a good quality way to get sound into my DAW without having to mic up an amp. So I do have a couple of amps in my collection. I've got a Fender Vaporizer, which has been revalved and also has a set of Celestion Vintage 30s in it. I've also got a PV Classic 30, which again has been heavily modified, revalved, and has a new speaker. And it's got a Celestion Century Vintage speaker in it with a neodymium magnet, but I wanted something with a bit more volume. So I wanted to try and replicate these as far as possible. In terms of amp models, I've got the PRS, the Waves PRS Supermodels, and they have proved to be pretty good so far. Didn't realise, but that part of that is because they use impulse, these things called impulse responses. So what is an impulse response? Well, an impulse response is a sonic signature for a given room or audio system, or you can really sample anything basically, but it's kind of a sonic signature piece of a system which you blend with your signal. So they use a lot in something called convolution reverb plugins. So that's where you get a sample of a recording, if you like, of a space, be it a hall, be it you know, a cavern or a cave, and you convolve that, you blend it with your signal to create this new sound. You can use them for like acoustic guitars. You can have an acoustic guitar impulse response which gives you the sound of a Martin D45 or something really kind of tasty and classic. But they're also used for speaker cabinets. Mic'd up recording isn't practical because my amps are pretty bloody loud, and you know, I don't have a separate garden studio yet, so it just doesn't work to, you know, turn an amp up to 11 and start thrashing around and record it. So it's got to be direct injected. So I've been playing with these. Just literally guitar plugs straight into the high impedance input on my interface, and quite impressed with the results. So what I've done is set up a comparison of certain amps and also things called IR loaders to just see what they're like basically. So first off, to replicate my vaporizer, I basically use the PRS Dallas mono. I've set up a kind of initial kind of settings just to kind of try and replicate a good clean sound, the sort of clean sound I like. Guitar I've been using, by the way, is a 2017 Fender Deluxe Nashville Telecaster, and the bass used with a 2017 Deluxe Jazz Bass Active without the active engagement. Initially, I was just looking at using the PRS model, but what you can do, you'll see here, there are two cabinets, and that's where you can load your impulse response. Basically, an impulse response is a short WAV file which contains the sonic signature, if you like, of this particular cabinet. So I started playing with that and really liked the sound of it. Then I discovered good friends at Celestion, and all my speakers in my amps are Celestion, have brought out a load of impulse responses. So they have basically done impulse responses for most of their speaker range, including Vintage 30. They haven't got the Century Vintage, it's an old model, but they have a couple of neodymium based speakers like the Neo Creamback. So I decided to download a couple and test them out, and I was very impressed with the quality. So on the Celestion front, I found, I mean, they've got a huge collection with cabinets, but I found this little thing where you can pick and mix 3 or 5 individual speakers. I didn't want everything, I just wanted 2x12 open back and a 1x12 open back really, and some bass speakers. So I didn't go completely crazy because there's a lot. So this is the Vintage 30 open 2x12. You get all these different sample rates. You get 200 millisecond and 500 millisecond versions. You get all these individual miking options and also these combinations. So I've used the low gain all Celestion just as a kind of standard for those. But you get quite a lot of choice within each sort of set. I'm also using, in terms of impulse loaders, which I mentioned before, you need something to put the impulse response into. Now the good old PRS model has an impulse loader built in, so you can load 2 cabinets. So I've compared basically the PRS model on its own, and I've got two impulse response loaders. So one is this little beauty. This is by Redwirez, and it's called MixIR3. So far very impressed with this. There's also this little beauty here, which is by 3 Sigma Audio, which is called Impulsive. And again, there's not a huge amount of difference, as you'll hear, between using the amp with the impulse responses loaded, Impulsive or MixIR. MixIR3 tends to be a little bit more flexible. It tends to be a bit better at handling different impulse responses, especially on the reverb, which we'll be doing in another episode. And it has, to my ears, it has a little bit more top end. So in each one I've got two loaded. So I've got the Vintage 30 2x12, and I've got the Neo Creamback 1x12. So let's have a quick look at Redwirez. So Redwirez Audio, they do this MixIR3. It's a little bit more expensive than the 3 Sigma version. It does come with a bunch of their own impulse responses. So I bought it with their bass pack, which is only 10 quid, just so I got some bass speakers, good bass speakers to use on the bass, which we'll come to later on. And their models are very interesting because they've got quite a lot of flexibility into the mic position. So 3 Sigma Audio, Impulsive, a little bit cheaper, $20, which is 15, 16 quid. But yeah, very good. And they also do a load of acoustic guitar and guitar impulsive. So like I mentioned before, if you want to make your guitar sound like a vintage Martin D45 or an expensive Taylor or something like that, then you can load these impulse responses on top of your guitar sound and blend them. So quite a lot of interesting stuff there. So let's have a look at MixIR3 for a minute. MixIR3, it does come with a reverb impulse response, an EQ, and also a 1960 Marshall cab, I think it is, as well as some of the bass impulse responses I bought. But let's just load one and have a quick look at it. So these are the Celestion impulse responses. They just come much as they are. There's not very much modifying you can do to them. There's a normalizer, you can adjust the volume, and there's pan, you can tweak the length of it, and there's obviously wet and dry mix. For the Redwirez sort of in-house cab, you get all this choice of mic positions and mics. You can also put it further away, you can have it central or off axis. So there's quite a bit of tweakery you can do. So for the clean sound, we're using PRS Dallas model. For the overdriven, we're using this lovely PRS V9. Again, same thing, we've got one version with the cabs loaded into the plugins IR loader, and we're using Impulsive on the second one and MixIR3 on the third. So for the bass, we are using good old Steinberg VST bass amp. And again, we've just taken the cabinet out, so no cabinet, and we're using the valve amp head. And once again, we are using Impulsive on the one hand as a cab, and MixIR3. And the speakers we've chosen this time are a couple of Celestions, so a 15-inch, single 15-inch ported, and then a 4x10. So we blended 2 cabinets. So yeah, I'm just running those without any EQ. There's a bit of EQ on the main out, there's a bit of compression on the sends, a bit of reverb, but it's fairly minimal. So I'll run that through and we'll see how it sounds. So what I'll get the editors and or Sam to do is to load up a high-res audio extract of this project, so that you can listen to the differences. So here we've got clean, the first 3 are clean guitar. We've got the PRS only, the Impulsive cab and the MixIR3 cab, and the same with the OD. We've got PRS only, Impulsive, MixIR3, and then the jazz bass is Impulsive and then MixIR3. So let's just run them through. So, did I notice any difference? Not a huge amount, actually. I think because the IR3, MixIR3 uses a full 500 millisecond sample, or IR, you get a bit more top end, a bit more clarity. The PRS model truncates it to 50 milliseconds, so you probably lose a bit of top end. And I think the Impulsive sounds a bit warmer. If you want a warmer sound, then it's probably the best choice. But if you want something with a bit more top end sparkle and clarity, the MixIR3 is pretty good. But the PRS model on its own, pretty good. I mean, it sounded really good, especially with the Celestion impulse responses, which I must say I'm very impressed with. So there we go. I recommend you check out certainly the Waves PRS Supermodels if you're looking for a good amp sim. But also the Celestion impulse responses are very good, and both those impulse response loaders are really good quality, so check it out. So next time we'll be looking at using impulse responses as reverbs in particular, just to cover off some of the great free resources, free impulse responses you can get out there. Some of them are recorded particularly well and represent some very unusual spaces like disused nuclear reactor halls and all sorts of stuff. So we'll cover off that a bit in part 2, but I think that's enough for now. That's all from this episode, and catch you later. Especially with the